So
Challenge.
Massive challenge. So, and not something that's been done before. So I went in, and this is also another story of persistence. So I had been trying to meet up with this producer, never met her before, for probably about 5 years.
Wow.
Like, let's get a coffee, let's get a call, let's meet.
Yeah.
We were finally going to do it. And then I get an email from her saying, like, not going to be able to meet for the coffee today, which is like, oh, gutting. But, like, you know, it's been 5 years in the making, so I'm like, also fine. She's like, but I do have a brief. Do you want to come in and hear about it instead? So I said, great. So I go in and hear about this brief that I'm like, wow, this sounds amazing. Know that I'm up against about 3 or 4 of the companies that have done more scientifically geared work, that are bigger, that have a little bit more of a footprint in that arena. But just thought, you know, actually, no, I think I can do a really good job at this. At the time I was working with Felt Music, and was involved in like pitching. So they had to be an artist, ideally in the UK, ideally have a kid that was between 6 and 18 months, not older.
Wow.
Be able to work experimentally. I also found the scientists, so a infant happiness expert and a music psychologist, both at Goldsmiths University. They also have an infant testing lab that I secured for the ad agency.
That's insane.
In the end, I ended up winning working on the pitch. It was a 9-month project, which I found quite ironic, given it's for babies. Imogen Heap's kid at the time, I think, Scout was about maybe, within the 18-month kind of marker. So Scout was also involved in the making of this track. So we were then using all of these elements of research that we got from the experts that I found for the project that they ended up enlisting working with, using that to create a brief. Then Imogen writing a couple of different pieces of music, then testing that on a number of infants. So like from a linear perspective, you can see which parts of the song in real time were actually had the most impact on like higher elevated heart rate, looking at the video, seeing if there are smiles, giggles, like further engagement, using those as windows into how to refine the track that overall did the best in terms of creating the positive affect, to then refine and work on that track even more.
It's really technical, isn't it?
Hugely technical, but like an incredible project. Like, I'm working directly with Imogen Heap as well. Like, it's not like there was no removal there. It was like, it was a real collaboration, and a real collaboration with the production company who were filming it, with the agency whose you know, baby it was, basically, whose brainchild it was, and the artist. And then when it was released as a single, it's still up there with Hide and Seek, which is her #1 ranking track of all time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congrats.
got global acclaim. Yeah, it was really, really incredible. And I don't know that I'll ever work on like something that's like that again. You know, it was so specific and so niche.
Yeah.
But, you know, and the fact that it worked, that was the thing that was mental. So like it started, you know, popping up on TV shows over in the US and North America, Australia, and people talking about how well it worked, you know, because you just don't know. So we'd spent all this time and going like, ooh, is this gonna fly, you know? And obviously there's gonna be moments where, like, you know, if a baby's in a really, like, you know, in a tantrumy mood or whatever, there are gonna be moments where, you know, the song isn't complete magic, but like
Kids
as
and
an
animals,
overarching, the fact that it does work, and that like I had friends even that were like, oh my God, this is like my kid's favorite track, and like really helps elevate their mood, and all these, like, all of the stuff that came out of the woodwork once it was released, on top of the testing that we did before releasing it, was kind of a fascinating and not even a thing I knew that I had as a goal in life, but like I don't even know that I can like supersede that. Like, 'cause it was so unto itself. And Imogen Heap was an artist I'd always really respected and admired. So that was a dream to work with her, and she was amazing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
With ads, a lot of it, you finding, is like a lot of custom work.
Because of our current situation of cost of living crisis, which I kind of don't like calling that, because really I feel that it's just a recession with a different brand on it.
Yeah.
There's more and more, it feels like, brands wanting to go to libraries. There's a little bit of like a pullback in terms of the amount of content that's being made. So I think bespoke definitely has its place, and there's definitely still a fair bit of that going on, and licensing of commercial tracks as well. You know, brands are always going to want to affiliate themselves with tracks that people know, whether it's a cover or whether it's, you know, the original recording. So there's still like a really good mix, which is nice because it keeps things interesting. Just like with, you know, in the TV landscape, like part of what I love about what I do is that I work in film and TV and advertising, and it
It's a
just
nice mix, yeah.
diversifies so much, like what, like how I work.
Because the deadlines are really different as well.
So different.
Aren't they?
Yeah, like the money's different, the deadlines are different. Like how you collaborate, like how you kind of like knit into the team, or like where you sit within the team is different. So even from a kind of, from that perspective, from a people perspective, it's interesting to work in different dynamics in that way.
So what do you find is the most pressured in terms of deadlines?
Oh, definitely advertising.
Very quick.
Definitely advertising, and definitely bespoke composition, because it's
They
kind
probably pay
of,
the most though, don't they?
yeah, but then it's kind of like I work a lot with a guy called Scooter at Studio Salamanca. I do a lot of my advertising work with him. He's brilliant at what he does. And, you know, like we were working on this project where like the genre kept changing, and like fair enough, they wanted to like experiment, but like, you know, that it kind of got to the point where they were like, okay, well, we've decided we now want to try this genre. Can you get us some demos for tomorrow? And it's like, this is not a library search. It's possible to do something within that time. We can't do what we would really want to do, and actually it's not really worth enlisting a composer to do that work if we're really just trying on different sounds. And what was great about the relationship that that existed there was that we were able then to go like, look, let's just look into library that we could potentially rework and do something original with, and, you know, finesse to picture. So we'll make sure that's part of the caveat, but let's work on bespoke when we know definitely the sound that we want to go for, rather than just like an exploratory, like, oh, we'll just get some composers to write. Like, that's a lot of work. And so I think
money.
the most difficult thing is actually that understanding of what does it take to make a track, and whether that's kind of like valuing it because it already exists, and like what it takes for like an artist or a band to get to the point where what you're hearing is what you're hearing, you know, in terms of skill and songwriting and collaboration and gigging and all of that, or even if it's just something where it's a jobbing composer and what it takes for them to do a 30-second, you know, brand new composition. I think that is an educational piece that I'm always really passionate about approaching with a lot of humility and like empathy and desire to connect and inform, you know, and bridging those kind of gaps as much as I can with clients, because I think it is a big missing piece for all of us that are either the conduits between musicians and artists and, you know, content makers, or even just for artists themselves. I think there's that even things like the approvals process and, you know, getting people to understand that part. Those are the trickiest moments where when you're under pressure, you're like,
and that's a good link. So from a clearance perspective, like what's been your like most challenging clearance or interesting? I've got an interesting clearance story.
Well, so, I mean, I definitely have a couple of more interesting ones, but the one that happened last year, which was during the strikes, which kind of ties into like that side of the conversation of how that impacted things. I was trying to clear a bit of film score for a film that I was working on, just one piece. And I had the publishing and the master side all approved. So all I had to do was go and get the union fees. And having never had to clear union fees during a strike, there was no way for me to know that actually that you can't clear any work during a strike at all, because it's stricken work, because all commercial tracks you can actually do the union fees, but because it was theatrical reuse, you couldn't. So I'd gotten all of the approvals and everything clear to then get to the end to go like, no, can't do it. And I was like, oh,
that's sleepless night territory.
Yeah, it was really, that was literally, I had no fingernails. And like, that was very
So how did
stressful.
you solve that?
We just had to replace what was there.
Yeah.
Because there was
How
just
frustrating though to get right to the end.
And it just had never, it hadn't occurred to me that would be an issue because I'd never come across it. Yeah. So that was a very sad,
my clearance, I think it was my first clearance experience as well. Ooh. And first of all, there was like a lot of legal issues because I was dealing with the artist directly, who said that his co-writer didn't own anything, even though the registration said otherwise, and that they owned all the rights and that their major label didn't, which proved otherwise. The label did own still the track, and the publisher did own as well. So I had that going on that I was trying to sort through. But then while I was sorting through that, managed to get the info that I needed, then ends up in prison for murder.
Oh, wow.
That was
Definitely win.
That was
Definitely win.
That was my first experience.
And you were like, I know, this is going to be my career.
Yeah, but what was crazy was that I was still getting WhatsApped at like 3 a.m. And I'm like, hold on.
In the prison?
I'm like a burner phone in the wall, really? Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
this is cool. This is like gangster.
Wow. That's like being part of a
But
film.
I managed to clear it, so.
Yeah. That is impressive.
Yeah, that was a good first experience.
I love that you call it good. That's very kind. It's a very generous way of describing that initial experience as a sync expert.
Well, maybe clearing any artists or anything like that, or working signing side of things.
Because we're mainly one stop. Usually it's, and I use the word usually, it's all sorted out. But not all, as you've just explained in your story. I have, not people that went to jail.
That's extreme.
Not that extreme, but there are when an artist says, I own all of this, and then they don't. Then they sign things. So a lot of what we do is on trust, right? So they've signed. If they've signed a contract, you believe that that's what's signed is what is true. But it's always good to just drill down and have a look on the PRS or whatever system to have a look and just go, right, is this really what it is? Particularly with older stuff as well, because bands split up and fall out, and they don't talk to each other, and one person might believe that it's entirely theirs because they
like him. That's the issue I had.
And with the issue you had. So it's a constant thing of just looking at things closely all the time, just to make sure. And particularly with master rights, it's just like, we used to be signed to Universal, but we're not anymore. But have you actually, have you cut the ties from and done it properly? And it's just like, no, we haven't done that. But it was 20 years. It doesn't matter that it was 20 years ago. You're still, until you actually cut terminate it properly, then you're still under that contract. So
there's so much more, isn't it, that goes into that people don't realise.
But even things like missing contracts I came up against recently, where it's like, oh, I think we've got this, but actually there's no paperwork at all for this track, but it's in our system and we're pretty sure that we have the rights for it, but there's nothing that's signed.
Yeah.
What?
So like those for me are my those are my even
that?
more sleepless night type things, because like it's one thing if you kind of aren't anticipating that you're going to run into trouble and then you do. That sucks, but you can kind of deal with it. You then
especially with a huge deadline.
Yeah.
Which there always is.
Let's be honest. Exactly. Yeah. It's always yesterday.